All right, and welcome to the Black and Gold Report. We are joined here once again by the voice of the Ohio Bobcats, Ryan Boyd. How's it going, Ryan?
Not too bad. I appreciate you having me on again, Corey. I always enjoy it.
Awesome. First of all, can you just, since you're with Ohio, just tell us the latest and greatest with the Bobcats?
Yeah, the Cats have been playing well over the last couple of weeks. Really, I mean, they've been playing well all season, but things have really started to move in the right direction here really recently. If you look back to just the last couple of weekends since the long winter break, they played at Minot State, which I know you guys have a matchup with them coming up, and the Cats did lose in the first night, but they rebounded nicely, and they were able to take a game there, which was a really tough trip for them. They had to go 22 hours to get down there, and then they got caught in some bad weather and got held up a bunch, and they were pretty proud of that performance. And then they obviously beat up pretty badly on Lindenwood, which was good for league standing purposes. And then even this past weekend, they split with Iowa State, but the only game they lost came in overtime, and it was one of those games where Matthew Cooper, the netminder for the Cyclones, which is too good. You know, the Bobcats really dictated play. They had more than twice the amount of shots that Iowa State had. So despite the loss, you know, they kind of just checked that up as a good goaltending performance. And, you know, overall they've been thrilled with where they've been playing, and that's a big reason why they've been moving up in the polls.
And then with Minot State, what has been some of the, if you've gotten any feedback from some of your players and coaches on how Minot State was, what type of game they played, anything like that?
Yeah, you know, first and foremost, I think this is a bit obvious and it goes without saying, but I like to mention it. You know, Minot State, regardless of who they have and don't have from a year ago, they're always going to be a big and physical team. And I think that if you want to beat Minot State, you got to find a way to match that physicality, whether it be in terms of, you know, the hits you supply along the boards or finding a way to avoid some of the hits that they throw themselves. You got to find a way to match that, and then in turn, you want to find a way to control the puck, because they have a lot of guys that can do a lot of really dynamic things. You look at Michael Jordan and some other guys on that team that are not only big, but they're very talented. So to slow them down, our coaches talked a lot about, like I said, puck possession. That was the biggest thing. If you can control the puck, if you can have more chances to score than they have, then you significantly limit the damage that can be done. And then, of course, you know, the other thing that you can't say enough about is the goaltender they have, Wyatt Wasanchuk. He ACHA Player of the Year last year, and from what I've heard, he's only gotten better. You know, he's only been playing at a higher level, and you have to keep in mind that he doesn't have some of the defensive pieces he had a year ago. I know one guy I think of, Nigel Dubé, one of the better defensive players in all of the nation last year, if you ask me. So they lose some pieces on defense, but they didn't lose anything in net. It's as good as could be, and to beat that netminder, our coaches talked a lot about putting some traffic in front of that net. If you can put some traffic there and hope for the best, that's the best way to beat them. Maybe a rebound chance or something like that. That's kind of the offensive strategy against a good goaltender like that.
Yeah, the garbage goals, those type of things. He has a 1.81 goals against average and a 95% save percentage. That's pretty good, Ryan.
Yep.
And then
it's something else, yeah.
Yeah, I know we saw him last year too at the Onyx Ice Arena, and he's really one of the best goalies in the league here. And they also have a rookie in Jeremy Johnson. He's got 22 goals, 16 assists for 38 points, but he's lethal on the power play with 7 power play goals. That's pretty impressive for a rookie.
It really is, and you know, it speaks volumes. It really does about the coaching staff first and foremost. A really good group they have out there, and they're the type of program, Corey, that can just filter in good players year after year. You know, they're in a good spot for recruiting. I know that North Dakota may not seem like an ideal state, but you're talking about an area that is close enough to the Canadian border, and it's a hockey area. You know, everything about Minot State is about that hockey program, and the fans love it, and kids grow up looking to play in that hockey program. So it's not hard for them to recruit. It's not hard for them to bring in guys that are talented like that. And the systems they have are really good, and they're exceptional for putting someone in a position to succeed. So you get in there your first year, and you know they get a youngster like that on the power play, and they have the right guys facilitating the puck to him, and he's going to score. You know, he's got a great shot. So it's a lot about the things around him that makes him really good to go along, you know, some of the skills that he has himself.
And as we are in the second semester here, what's a team that's kind of surprised you in a good way so far this year, Ryan?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A team that has surprised me in a good way. Let's see. I've been impressed. I'll say this. I've been very impressed by Stony Brook, first and foremost. I think that they may not have the toughest schedule in the nation, and they certainly aren't the most talented team in the nation, but it's a hard-working group, and I've never seen them play in person, but I've watched numerous games online, when they broadcast those games. I know most recently I watched them play a game against Liberty. Liberty, a really, really tough opponent. Liberty actually beat the Bobcats twice this year, both by 1 goal, and then I saw them live in person. I've been down to Liberty's arena before, and I've seen some of the guys work out there. So what Stony Brook did to them a couple of weeks ago and beat them by, I think it was 3 goals in the end. They had a 7-2 or 7-1 lead in that game. I think it speaks volumes about what Stony Brook can do and what they possess. Even though I'm not sure if they're ready to be a national championship contender yet, they've certainly surprised me a bit.
And then let's go the opposite, a team that's kind of disappointed you so far this season that you thought, would be doing better at this point.
Yeah, there's a couple of teams I guess I could point to. First and foremost, I've been really disappointed with Illinois. I think they're 20th right now, and they might climb a spot or two because I know they swept through a couple of weaker opponents this past weekend. But you're talking about an Illinois team that brings back the best goaltender, at least in terms of how the awards were given out, the best goaltender in the CSCHL last year, who I thought was going to have another big-time season. Nick Clark is who I'm thinking of. And, they have so many good offensive pieces as well, like Olin, who I spoke volumes about during the ACHA preview show. So for them to end up in a situation where they're barely at 500 and where they're right now on the brink of missing the tournament, that's been a big shock for me. And then another that's been a bit surprising has been Lindenwood. I thought Lindenwood was going to build a bit. I know they lost Grant Gortlica, who was one of the better scorers in all of the nation, but it's a program, just like I was saying about Minot State, that so often has great turnover, and they bring in the right pieces after losing seniors. And this year, I know they're still in the top 15, I believe, but they're below 500, and I never envisioned that we'd see that out of the team that made it to the championship game last year.
Curious to think of what an outsider's view of Oakland's season is so far here, Ryan.
Yeah, it's been a lot of up and down from what I've seen. And I wouldn't want to be the guy on your report to criticize too much, but there's certainly been, some rough moments in the season, it seems. And to be completely honest with you, Corey, I don't know. I personally haven't been able to pinpoint 1 or 2 things that have been the problem for them, just from an outsider's view. But I know that I will say that recently the troops have been turning around pretty nicely. You guys had a really nice weekend this past weekend. I saw the win over Colorado State in particular was an impressive one. So it looks like, and you got to hope so if you're the Grizzlies, you got to hope you're turning around at the right time, and it seems like they might be just in time to sneak into that national picture.
Right. And I know another thing has just been, a lot. It's a young team, 1, and 2. There's a lot of different types of injuries in the first semester, but it is what it is with that. Now, going right now, have you changed your opinion from the start of the season till now about national tournament favorites at all?
That's a good question. I think that a couple of teams have come a long way in convincing me that they're national contenders. First and foremost, and this is not to be a hometowner, even though I know that I might get some people might think so. I think Ohio has gone night and day difference from where they were at the beginning of the year. A lot of the young guys really starting to form into some great players. The goaltending situation has become incredibly good, and I questioned it very much so at the very beginning of the year. So for Ohio, I think they've become a national contender, certainly. Obviously, you look at some of the other teams at the top. I think Robert Morris is extremely dangerous. We had them at Bird Arena a couple of weeks ago, and when Andy DeCristofaro is healthy, one of the best netminders in the nation, and I think teams with good netminders can win a championship, so I like RMU. I like Liberty as well. I think Liberty is very talented. Oklahoma, obviously, very good. But the one thing I will say, and you and I have talked about this before, Corey, I've talked about this with my other broadcaster, Kevin Noonan, as well. I'm not sold on Arizona State, and I think that they are going to make a run. I think they're going to be close to bringing it home, which seems to be the case almost every year in recent history. But I'm not sold on Arizona State being the best team in the nation. I don't think they've been tested, and when they have been tested, I think they've shown some major weaknesses. And when they travel from Arizona State, or I guess from the I'm not sure if they're going to show out the way that some people think they will in that part of the country.
I can't argue with anything that you said there, Ryan. I mean, it's I think Arizona State, Oklahoma, Liberty are all teams who have some pressure to kind of win a national championship because they've been good. And you know how that goes when you're good for so long. It's like it gets to the point where just bring home the championship. You know, enough of being good in the regular season, bring it home. Rankings. I know that sometimes in our broadcast we talk about confusion with certain teams as to where they are, and with certain movements in these computer rankings. What are your thoughts on rankings?
Well, first and foremost, the rankings are never going to be perfect. It doesn't matter if you're doing the computer rankings, if you're doing the human-made rankings. It's never going to be a perfect system, and I know that in the preseason, I had some good things to say about them. I had some bad things to say about them. I'm kind of still in the same boat. Although I will say that up until a couple of weeks ago, I was pretty impressed with the way that the rankings were working. Nothing too crazy was happening from week to week, but I will say, and again, this is just because I very, very closely follow Ohio, being a broadcaster for the team. We were all pretty confused, I guess would be the word I'd choose, for how the last rankings went. And we're hoping that this upcoming week it'll get us back on track. But when our troops traveled to Minot State and not only won one of two games after traveling 22 hours, but won the goal differential battle in that matchup, we couldn't rationalize how Ohio went from 3 to 6. And not only that, but in that fall, Minot State jumped in front of them, which was almost blasphemy to some of the players on the team. I know a few of them were very, very angry, in fact, about how that shaped out. So there are good weeks and there are bad weeks, I guess I'll say, with the rankings. But, I don't hate them. I just think that no system can be perfect.
Right. And then is there anything that you kind of think in terms of suggestions for the rankings and what type of system that you would look forward to?
It's a really good question. At the moment, I'm not sure exactly what I would suggest, I guess. I like a system that includes a little bit of human interaction as well as the computer interaction. And I know that the system we have now is more lenient towards the computer side of things rather than that human side. And I think that it's just all about finding a balance, because like I was saying, the thing that the computer can't take into consideration, and I know all teams have these extenuating circumstances, so I'm only using Ohio as an example because I'm most familiar with this team, but a computer system can't take into account that Ohio had a 22-hour journey to Minot State. Not only that, but in the first game that they lost by 1 goal, they had 50-something shots on net, and Minot State had 30-something. So it was all about a goaltending performance alone is the only reason that Ohio didn't sweep the defending champions, yet they fall 3 spots. So if you can find a way, and listen, I'm no expert, and like I said, it can't be perfect, but if you can find a way to get the mixture of the human and the computer element, I think you can maybe have the most perfect of an unperfect system.
Yeah, I would say you're probably going to jump up about 2 spots to number 4.
Yep, I heard that, yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, I think Oakland's going to jump up a spot. Minot State's probably going to drop a little bit, is the word on the street. So it's just interesting how things work. And I know probably Adrian a couple weeks ago, it's what happened to Oakland. Oakland swept Kent State, but they only swept them by a couple of goals, like 1 or 2 goals in both games. And Adrian the same way, and both those teams dropped after that, even though they got the win, because it was a kind of a little bit of a lesser team there. And then the thing that confused me, though, was at the same token was Oakland stays at 18 after losing to Western Michigan. So those are the things that confuse me in the rankings that I don't quite understand, but I guess it is what it is,
Yeah, you're right. And another example that was kind of confusing for me, and don't get me wrong, I can explain why it happened, but even last week, you saw Oklahoma, who traveled to Arizona, and I realize that's an extremely tough trip, but during the weekend, they lost 2 of the 3 games they played, including a game to Arizona, who is lower ranked than Oklahoma was. So I know they had the really impressive one over Arizona State, and I'm happy for them. I thought that was an incredibly good performance. But to lose 2 of 3, including one to a lesser opponent, and then for them to jump up a couple of spots, that too is confusing for me, you know? So it's just, I don't know, as we get down to the end here and everybody's vying for those really important top spots, it's just, you would hope there'd be less head scratchers than there have been. And it doesn't even have to be at the top. It could be like you're talking about, back in the 15 to 20 spots. I mean, all those teams, 1 through 20, know how important it is right now to not get a bad spot in those rankings. So hopefully, as we get closer and closer to national tournament time and months from now, hopefully we're not having as many head scratches with the rankings.
And I know one thing too that our friend Fishbert does. Kind of when he does some stuff with the rankings, and I guess that he's out in Tucson, Arizona, and I guess there's a couple of times with the ACHA's actual rankings that they put out where they've had incorrect data in, which has led to incorrect rankings. So hopefully that's something that doesn't happen when it's at the last draw for the national tournament and there's something incorrect in there where a team gets bumped, and if it was correct they would be in. That would be disastrous. So.
Yeah, and part of the reason why they moved to a ranking system like that is so they could avoid it, because last year there were so many question marks in the human polls because, let's say, a team like Arizona gets left out of the national tournament even though they had a really, really good year and they were better than many people expected them to be, and somehow they fall out of the picture just because of the human, part of the poll. So you're right. I mean, they make this change so that we don't have that problem, and so we don't have teams get left out that deserve to be in. So there's really no excuse at all. I don't know who's in charge of all that and who's to blame, but you can't have any excuses a month from now. It's got to be right. You're absolutely right, Corey.
And we'll move on from the rankings so I don't get fined. But let's talk back to Oakland a little bit here, and I know that you're busy with Ohio and things like that, but is there anybody rather on Oakland that's kind of impressing you? Obviously, I know Billy Ballant and guys like that, but anybody else that throughout the year that you've kind of looked at their numbers and said, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, of course. I knew a question like this would come, and obviously you knew that I had to throw Ballant's name out there because you and I love to talk about that. But yeah, you guys have a number of talented players on that team that I enjoy following. Obviously, at the top, the two leading scorers you have in Kaliza, I believe, or Kaliza.
Kaliza.
Good player. Yeah, good player.
Yeah.
A pair of forwards there at the top that are really, really impressive. Another guy that I really like to watch, and a guy that's been really, really good on the power play this year, is Drew Paris. He hit 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points. He's not a guy that's super flashy or a guy that's going to lead the team in scoring, but he's been good, and I looked at the stats. He's not a power play guy, but he's had a good year, a very good year, and then obviously Frank Nadiak as well, I believe is how you pronounce that, and
yeah.
my apologies if not, but he's the power play guy I was looking at, and I got him confused. He's been good with 8 power play goals, second on the team. You like guys like that again, may not be the number one scorer, may not be the number one talented guy on the team, but you give them chances, and they're going to convert, and that's what you found in those two guys, at least from what I've seen this year.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned Paris, because when we did our preseason show, and I get made fun of all the time for what I said about this, but I kind of called him, the X Factor, because you have the top 3 guys at the top, and then you have a guy who's really good, like a Drew Paris, who you can slide into your top 6, or if you need to generate some offense down at the third line, you can throw him down there as well and get some offense generated. So that's why I kind of called him that, is because, you can put him in any position and he's going to do well.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then I look at your goaltenders now as well. The first guy that obviously stands out, Corey Richchuk, I believe is the pronunciation. Again, I haven't...
First Chuck, that's fine.
Quite some time. But it seems as if, and again, I'm no expert, but it seems as if you guys have been leaning on his shoulders, and I know that, recently he seems to be playing really well, and those goals against numbers seem to be going down, at least on the average, and hopefully that save percentage is going up, even though it's a little bit below 90, but I know that he's an experienced guy, and I know he's the type of guy that you can lean on and expect big things out of, and you guys are going to need him to to really step it up if you're going to not only make the tournament, but then give some teams a scare once you get there.
Right, and I think that he'll have to play his best games of his career in Minot State this weekend. And then the final thing, too, I just want to talk about is I know how you guys have a couple of impressive rookies. We have some guys, Ryan Rotundi, Mike McKinnon, and Alex Frere. They are just phenomenal rookies and great additions, guys that can score. They can dish the puck. They're great on the power play, and they're playing key roles. And really, when you look at that, and the top guys on the team, and then you look at those three guys, those are the three guys who are really going to be the difference makers. If the top guys are always scoring, or if they get contained to do the complete opposite, those are the guys who are going to have to step it up. And I know you can tell us about your guys on the team who are kind of in a similar way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you talk to either of our head coaches, they'll tell you that it's such a luxury to have players like that you know they're talented, and you know that by the time their career's over with, they're going to be impact players, but you never know what to expect in the freshman year or the rookie season. So to have guys like that step up is absolutely huge, and you guys obviously have gotten that. And Ohio's had a bit of the same. In fact, it's pretty funny, the numbers from Ohio's top freshman players are very, very similar to the few that you guys have. But the two that have been the most notable for Ohio this year, one Joe Breslin, the other is Patrick Spellacy. Spellacy, first and foremost, he was put into the top line right off the bat. He plays alongside Brett Agnew, who is arguably the best player in the conference, and then he skates along with a smaller forward in Matty Hartman, also on that line. But when you lose a player like Tyler Como, which is what Ohio was trying to deal with at the beginning of the year, they needed someone to step in, and you never would have thought it'd be a freshman, but Patrick Spellacy has stepped in and been absolutely phenomenal so far this year. You can't take anything away from him. And then Joe Breslin's the second-line guy. They tried earlier in the year having him on the top line as well with Agnew and Spellacy, and it wasn't a good fit because all three guys were too similar, but now that Breslin's been moved to that second line, he's been extremely effective as well. And to have two guys like that are both 6'3" or 6'4" and really good with their puck handling and everything else, it's been nice to have that addition to the team.
And then final thing here for you, Ryan Boyd, as he's the voice of the Ohio Bobcats, joining us here on OaklandHockey.org. Big weekend series, Oakland and Minot State. Who do you guys got this weekend?
We have Illinois at home this weekend.
Okay, so that should be, with all due respect to Illinois, 2 good wins for you guys there. I know it's a rivalry type game, so it's going to be tough either way. But what's your prediction for Oakland and Minot State?
Yeah, they're playing twice, right?
Yeah, we play Williston State first on Thursday, and then Minot on Friday and Saturday.
Okay, yeah. I like that schedule, by the way. I know some people may not like the 3 games in 3 days, but I like the kind of tune-up against Williston State and then Minot after the fact. Listen, it's going to be a really, really tough matchup. Minot State is really, really tough. I know that they've had some up and down moments, but it comes down, like you said, goaltending. If your goaltender can play at the highest level, you guys are going to have a chance. There's no question. And then on the other end, you guys have got to find a way to test Waselenchuk. If he doesn't get tested enough, I promise you he's going to stop everything that comes in his direction. He's that good. I like Minot State this weekend. I think they're a little bit overpowering, but I wouldn't be surprised if you guys give them a run for their money in at least one, if not both games. I question if for 60 minutes you guys will be able to hold up with them, but yeah, by no means do I think it's impossible you guys could walk away with at least one this weekend.
Awesome, Ryan. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you again later on this season here in the Black and Gold Report, and hopefully, we can do a big Nationals preview with Oakland going to the Nationals, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and certainly good luck to you guys this weekend. I'm pulling for you. Minot State's good, but like I said, I'd like to see a big performance from you guys.
All right, take care, buddy.